Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about how awesome it is playing at a con. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and let's not get so congested over the cards we're going to be talking about. I was trying to mix it up.
Yep.
Yeah, we got a great episode. We're going to continue our little mini series here right after this message from our humble and beloved leader, David Walsh.
That's me. I don't know if I'm beloved, but I'm definitely doing something over here.
You don't feel it? I feel it. I think it's palpable.
Palpable love. All the way from Teddy B's place. So, anyways, if anybody is interested in supporting the show financially, we do have a Patreon, and we love our patrons. We try to reach out to them as much and often as we can to give them stuff, and give them opportunities to help Card Talk. If you are interested in becoming a patron, right down here, right covering Ted's head, is the website. It's patreon.com/cardtalk2018, and you too can become a patron. This year's swag is closed to people, but it's never too soon to start about next year, and I already have ideas. Something that I hope that it can come to fruition. I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but it's gonna fall in line maybe with this year's swag, so it's gonna be pretty cool. Anyways, thank you to all the current patrons who are out there. Jason's brand new, so thank you, Jason. Miles, Ryan, Manuel, Grant, Katie, Eric, Rachel, Tony, Valentin, Eric, Dern's father, Moritz, Anders, Shane, Micah, Chris, Reagan, Robert, Brandon, Scott, Joe, Alex, Edmund, Peter, Niall, Carl, Vardine, James, Joshua, Matt, Russ, Justin, Jason, Robert, Kyle, Daniel, Mike, Robert, David, Sean, Lou, Phil, Joseph, and Dominic. Thank you so much for being a patron. And one of the things you could do is, if you want to go back and see some of the awesome stuff that we have done in the past, you can go to the blog, cardtalk2018.com, and you can easily look up some of our past episodes. You can see the awesome stuff that Matt is doing over there. He posts a couple of playthroughs every week. They're written playthroughs, and that's pretty cool. So he's been working hard. He's definitely the Card Talk keyboard warrior. So we thank him for all his hard work. But let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Grant, what have we been doing these past few episodes, and what are we going to do today?
Well, we've been discussing what cards we would like to bring to conventions, things that may not get the play in a standard game, but in multiplayer they may have more use. Or more benefit.
Yeah, and this was inspired by Ted, because Ted is the best deck builder ever. 2 years ago at the con, he established his reputation as the best deck builder ever, and we got to keep going with that.
There's a whole story behind that, but it was a great time. It's great fun time, and just something we're talking about, a little series here, a little mini series, just because for people, if you don't commonly play 3 or 4 player games, it's something just to consider, even if you're going to hop on more games and play on one of the online conventions that have been going on this year and last year.
Yeah, and I think that a con is a little bit different also than playing with a play group too, because I think in a con, when you have 100 people or 200 people, or if it's Gen Con, 50,000 people, whatever it is, you don't have the chance to coordinate usually. You go and you meet somebody and you're like, hey, let's play a game. So you're not coordinating your decks. Like, you don't have a finely tuned dwarf fellowship going on, so you have to think about cards that make sense generally playing multiplayer than you would like even if you just had like a 3 or 4 player play group that you play once a month with, so I think the con kind of falls into this little niche of awesomeness that you can't really replicate. So if you're going to Con of the Rings, awesome, look us up. I'm going to be there. Ted is probably going to be there. Grant, unfortunately, is stuck over in Europe, but he's not stuck in Europe, but he's in Europe, and so he participates in all the digital cons that are going on. And I think that even if it's a digital con, like the LCG con was recently, I think that these same considerations apply, right? Like, because you're not coordinating your decks, even though you're playing multiplayer. So that's where the value of this comes in, I think. So, where do we start, Grant?
Well, we're starting with the 3-cost spirit event from the core set, the Galadrim's Greeting.
Yeah, and I think that I put this one on the list, so I'll talk a little bit about it, and then you guys can do this. Like, the Galadrim's Greeting is like a great card. It's not like a card that flies under the radar, really, but I think when you're playing 4-player, this card becomes more valuable because you can lower everybody's threat. And I don't think that anybody would say, no, don't lower my threat, please. I don't think that that's a thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing, there's very few reasons. Maybe somebody's a Valor, like you hit your 40 and you're in Valor all of a sudden and you're like, here, let me lower your threat.
There is also the case of Saruman.
Yeah, there's a couple cases between Valor decks, Saruman, and Perilous Voyage decks where their threat can't be lowered. But again, those are just kind of very specific, non-broad circumstances.
Right.
Yeah, and also I think it depends on the value going between. In a 2-player game, it's more valuable to reduce 1 player's threat by 6 than 2 players' threat by 2.
Can you read the card again?
Yep, not a problem. I didn't actually read it. I just told you what it was.
Because I think it's lower your threat by 6. I don't think
reduce 1 player's threat by 6.
It is 1 player.
Or reduce each player's threat by 2.
Okay, so you can choose 1 player. So to have that as a legitimate option is really great. Yeah. And so I think that we get tunnel vision on Galadrim's Greeting, that we just want to lower somebody's threat by 6 because we play 1 player, 2 player, but when you're playing 4 player, that versatility is really good.
Yeah, that's where it comes down to. Do I need to reduce everybody's threat by 2, or can I take the time and just reduce one person's by 6, and then my next one I can reduce another person's by 6? What's going to be benefit for the entire table in this situation?
Yeah, and we have talked about cards that are pretty good anyways, and this is one of those that's pretty good.
Oh, definitely.
But it's just, I think it's one of those that becomes even better because now you can use it in 2 different ways, doing the same thing but in 2 different ways, and it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes one player is high on their threat, and the fact that you can target someone and choose to drop their threat by 6 because they're not drawing their own threat reduction, it can help out when they might otherwise threat out, and then they're not playing anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What's the next card on the list, Grant?
The next card on the list is Light the Beacons.
I have a story about this card, but go ahead. If you could actually, I'll tell the story while you look up the card. So we were playing with Durin's father at the last con, and he was playing a total mono spirit deck, and we were in kind of a bad place. Ted, I think you were there with me. I think it was you, me, and my buddy Chris, and Durin's father. Maybe you weren't there. Maybe it was a different person.
Yep.
And he played Light the Beacons, and I swear to you that I had never seen that card before. I was like, what is this new devilry? What is this new this thing? So Grant, tell us what Light the Beacons do. What do it do, yo?
Light the Beacons, the 5-cost spirit event. Action. All characters get +2 defense and do not exhaust to defend until the end of the round.
Pretty big. It can have in that game. It had a huge effect.
We won. That was the card that made us win. And it's it's a card I never consider playing solo, right? Like, it's just not a card.
It's
5 in spirit. Like, you're not usually playing a mono spirit deck, although there's more options now to do that sort of thing. Solo, I mean, but I don't know. It's just one of those crazy.
I don't think I've ever seen this played on the table.
Oh.
I knew it existed.
You're better than me.
I have looked at it a couple of times, and I've always passed over it, because the not exhausting to defend is nice, and the +2 defense could have some impact, but there's always something else I want more.
Than not dying?
Than not dying.
Generally,
okay.
When I'm building a deck, I don't expect to die.
Fair enough. That's the thing, and like this is kind of a theme throughout the con. When somebody else does something like this, you're like, go ahead. Like, you're never going to argue with somebody. So wait, you're going to play a card, and my characters aren't going to exhaust to defend, plus they're going to get +2 defense? Yeah, if you want to do that for me, that would be great. I'm not going to argue with it.
It can make a very, very big impact. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, someone plays Light the Beacons. I've got Grimbion on the table with 6 defense. He goes up to 8 defense, and now all he needs to do is just strike back and kill everything else. He can defend everything.
Right, and then you need enough resources to be able to do that.
Well, if I've got Steward on him, no problem.
Right. Go back to their leadership episode and talk about, like, ways to get people, resources and stuff like that, because there's action windows in between each, so you can pass resources over to Grimbeorn if you don't know. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay.
If Grimbeorn's got Orcrist, he's pretty much generating his own resources.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So therefore, he's probably already killing things.
Right. Yeah, so what's the next card? I love this next card, and I'm not sure exactly why. I mean, I know why we put it in the list, but what do we
Spare Pipe.
Yep, Spare Pipe.
Spare Pipe is the 1-cost attachment that attaches to a character. The attached character gets +1 hit point, and then after you play Spare Pipe, search your top 5 cards of your deck for an event and add it to your hand. Then you shuffle your deck.
So if I play Spare Pipe on Ted's character, does Ted get to search his hand,
no?
I do, right?
You do.
Yeah, and so I think this is another one of those things that if you're playing Spare Pipe, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, and you put it on somebody else is going to be like, great, I'll take the hit point, but then it allows me to draw. But, Baragon with an extra hit point, or, anybody with an extra hit point is good, right?
The first time I saw this card played, I was running Grimbeorn, and Grimbeorn had taken like 4 damage. You only had like 1 hit point left, and the played Spare Pipe on him just to give him that bit extra safety net. And I think he ended up with 2 or 3 Spare Pipes on him that game.
Right. And those are the types of plays that I don't think that people think about too often, because you get into your groove playing solo or playing with somebody and so playing Spare Pipe on somebody else that allows you to draw 5 cards, that helps them and it helps you. Like, those are the types of things that we're saying there, right?
Well, you're not drawing 5 cards.
I'm sorry,
searching
you're
the top
searching
5
top 5, right?
Yeah, for
It's-
an event.
right. It's not peace and thought.
No, it's not a piece and thought.
One of the cards that I want to bring up that's not on our list, like a combo that you want to think about, is Lothiriel and Aomer, because the Lothiriel Aomer combo can happen without kind of accidentally, because Lothiriel, you can bring your Lothiriel deck and she gets all the bonus, and somebody else could have Aomer in play and it's fine. You don't have to have a deck that's got both Lothiriel and Aomer in it. And I think that's one of those things that's really nice.
It's the same as the twins, Aladan and Elrohir.
Right.
You can have one under one player's control, another under the other, and they get the bonus for each other because they're in play.
Right. And so I think that's a legitimate thing to think about.
One thing I will say is Spare Pipe is great for Smoke and Think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and Smoke and Think is a great card anyways, right? Reduce the cost of the next card played by 1 for every pipe in play.
For every pipe you control.
Every pipe you control. Okay. So
another one too that wasn't on our initial list too that I want to just kind of mention. Shadows Give Way wasn't on our initial list, but Shadows Give Way is the 3-cost spirit event where you must use resources from 3 different heroes' resources pools. So you have to either have the heroes have to be a spirit sphere in some fashion. It doesn't have to be printed. You can use a song or a card, like a ring or something that gives them an icon. But as an action, you discard each shadow card from each enemy in play.
How many shadows do you discard? 1?
No, all of them.
All shadows.
Okay.
All shadows in play. Unique enemies are not immune to this. So if you have some, we're going to be playing Arid Mithrin Cycle and getting a shadow card that says, this dragon gets an extra attack this turn. Not great. So you can just discard all shadow cards in play and 3 resources. Yeah, it's hefty and you have to have the conditions. But again, it makes a big impact where you can now make different decisions with your defenses.
Right.
Because if an enemy doesn't have a shadow card, oh, you know what? My ally can defend this and live.
Does it get rid of face down shadow cards or any shadow cards?
It's just all shadow cards in play. So if they're dealt face up from a card effect or something you've looked
like
at,
Silver Lamp or something, right?
Silver Lamp, like, doesn't matter. All shadow cards, just forget them. Like,
this
just
card is brilliant throughout the Heirs of Numenor and against the Shadow Cycle, where you can end up with a crazy chain of shadow cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can have 15 shadow cards on things. Even in the Dream Chaser cycle, deal an extra shadow card to this enemy for every whatever, you can have 15 shadow cards that trigger, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah. So Shadows Give Way is a great mention there, Ted.
Yep. And then the last one on the list, Grant, what's our last one right here?
Double Back.
Okay. What does that do?
It's the 1-cost side quest that once it's cleared, you get each player gets to reduce their threat by 5.
Yeah, and this falls under that.
Sorry, it's a 0-cost side quest. My bad.
Right, and it has how many quest points? 4 or 6?
4.
4, right?
4.
And so this falls under the category of scaling. That playing 1, it's fine. But it becomes maybe a little bit easier to clear when you're playing 4 players, because putting 4 progress on something seems maybe more attainable. Maybe not when you're playing 4 players because you're seeing stuff, but it just seems like, you get more bang for your $0, right?
Yeah, you're spending a whole turn of the games. They have a side effect, but sometimes that's good. It lets players sort of accumulate more resources and put more things on the table, and then at the same time, you're getting this effect of reducing the threat.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, if you've got Long Defeat out there, check out our low video prior. You get either heal some damage or draw 2 cards on top of the reduction.
Yep. and so you get a lot of good use out of it. And actually, maybe this speaks to a broader topic about all the side quests, because I think we were talking, before the show started, and we were saying, like, all the side quests pretty much scale. Grant brought up a good point about the Storm Comes, and so Grant, talk about a little bit about what you said there with the Storm Comes.
The Storm Comes is a nice little side quest that allows each player to on their first ally not to require a resource match. It is a one-cost neutral side quest. Oh no, sorry, it's 0 cost. It's 5 quest points. There can only be 1 copy of the Storm Comes in the victory display. While this quest is in the victory display, the first ally played by each player each round does not require a resource match. So you could be running a mono spirit deck and say play out Legolas.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, even for the Grey Wanderer, that's a good workaround for playing, unique allies in a Grey Wanderer deck, because that's the one thing you can't do, play unique cards with the Grey Wanderer. The first card you play in the planning phase can be anything as long as it's not unique. So there's all sorts of things you can do there. Ted, what about playing side quests? I mean, you're the one with the most con experience playing with people that you've just met. What about playing side quests? Do you have to consider?
Well, it's so the great thing is about side quests is, unlike Guarded and Doom cards, they have no immediate effect. Maybe with the exception of if you're playing the 5th cycle, which is what's the name of it?
The Dread Realm.
Lost Realm.
That's
the name of the deluxe box.
Yeah, Dread Realm is the last. Angmar Awakens.
Angmar Awakens cycle. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
right.
there's effects in those scenarios that say, based on the number of quest cards in play, this effect happens. But most of the time, those effects are not in the game. So you can always put the side quest out there generally without having to do like a table survey, because it doesn't really hurt anything. But it is good to talk about and discuss. It's kind of good etiquette. Say, hey, I got this gathered information. Is it something you guys want me to put on the table and we do this turn? And they'll, oh yeah, let's spend a turn and do it. We can complete it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a good etiquette to discuss it with your party and with your fellowship, much like it is with Guarded and Doomed and a few other things.
And I think that those cards, what's the worst of the side quests? Explore Secret Ways?
Yeah.
Generally, it's regarded as the worst, but even the thing is, the effects they scale, much like all the other multiplayer cards. Like the
Explore Secret Ways isn't great unless you've got multiple. Let's pull it up and I'll read
But the
it
chances
out.
of you seeing that location are going to go up because you're
up with the number of players.
With the number of players, so it's like Explore Secret Ways isn't like a phenomenal side quest, and it's good in certain cases, but I don't know.
It's the one cost 6 quest points, limit 1 copy of Explore Secret Ways in the victory display. While Secret Ways is in the victory display, each location in the staging area with the same title as the active location does not contribute its threat to the total threat in the staging area.
Yeah, and I mean, in multiplayer, that's, what do people say? You're drawing 4 locations, and you get location locked. Yeah.
In conventions, you're going to have 3 locations in play, and I stack them up. Like, okay, these 3 locations are 3 threat apiece, so this pile is 9 threat. And you could very easily reduce that down to 0 if you spend a turn doing Explore Secret Ways.
Yeah. And again, it's not a phenomenal option, but it's an option that gets better because you have multiplayers, right? And that's
like locations are gonna stack up. Like,
right.
This is the side quest too, where like 4 players, you have a real good use case for it.
Right.
Like it can make a real impact as opposed to just solo.
And back to the same point that I've been making in the past two, and specifically, because you're 4 players, specifically you can bring a location control, and actually you probably should bring a deck. One of the 4 of you should probably have a deck that has some location control, or if you don't have a dedicated location control deck, 2 of you should have some location control to help mitigate that stuff, even if it's just Asphalloth, on Glorfindel that you normally wouldn't put in the deck. Having that location control is helpful. So, you can deck specialize a lot more at a con and have those sorts of things. So, same thing with side quests. Having those side quests can be really, really helpful because of the scaling effect. Oh, you want to play gather information? That's great. Go ahead. I will help send for aid. I'll do it. We'll do it. Let's go.
I actually like Keep Watch. Keep Watch is actually very nice.
That's the one that's battle, right? And gives everybody -1.
Yeah, that takes
-1
away
defense.
It's that one's
-1 attack.
-1 attack. Okay.
Yeah, that one's not. That one, the other tactics one is battle, the one where you defeat an enemy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's -1 attack on all non-unique enemies, I want to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you do that, some of the side quests are not as impactful late game, but like early to mid game, they can be very impactful to help you have a strong playthrough. They can be hard to complete first turn. If you don't complete them in 1 turn, man, is that a bummer. It sets you back.
It's a feel bad.
Yeah. So sometimes the first turn, you're not always able to do it because you can't make the progress, but like second or third turn, your table might be set up to do it.
Right. Yep. Well, how's that for Spirit? There's not as many Spirit cards, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure that, like Test of Will is good anytime.
PSA. Yeah, PSA. I will notice sometimes that players, they will run Spirit and they will choose not to run, Test of Will and Hasty Stroke by default. It's more common to not see Hasty Stroke. But sometimes too, people are like, oh no, I don't have Test of Wills. Like, I would at the very least put them in your sideboard, pack them in your bag, or put them in your deck case. And if you're not sure, say, hey, people want me to add in these Hasty Strokes, Test of Will. Like, people will probably tell you yes. Yes, please.
I think Hasty Stroke is the lesser of 2 because there's so many ways now of dealing with shadow cards, but I think Test of Will should be always in the sideboard.
Yeah, and if you want to play a really difficult game, play a game with 4 players and no Test of Wills, no Eleanor. Don't even cancel treacheries if you're one of those really hardcore players. But if you want to have like if you want to
actually win,
a fun time. It's strongly encouraged because even if you have 2 players playing 3 copies, you might not have a copy in hand when you need it.
Yeah, I agree. It's
and
I do have
treacheries can just wreck your game, and even shadow cards too.
Because you're just seeing them much more often than you're used to. Like when you're playing solo, you may not get a treachery. You're probably not going to get a surge. Like I mean, you can get a surge, but it's when you're playing 4-player, one of those cards is going to be a surge. 2 of them are going to be locations. At least one of them is going to be a treachery. 2 of them are going to be a treachery. Like you're going to just see the whole encounter deck much more quickly. Like you're just going to see it happen. And so the more you can do to help mitigate the encounter deck that's what you need to do. Okay. Well, Does that put a nice bow on the spirit
Yeah,
side of stuff?
I just had to mention that.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk for hours about all this stuff, but
Yeah, again, many cards we didn't name, but thumb through your collections and take a look at some cards you haven't played before.
Yep. So everybody join us again as we take on more cards for a con. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.